She looked straight at me, wrinkled her nose, and said, "People like you shouldn't be in first class." Everyone around us turned their heads. The plane hadn't even taken off yet, and already this woman was making a scene. I was dressed in jeans and a plain jacket. Nothing fancy. That's the point. Nobody's supposed to know who I am when I fly. I smiled, trying to stay calm. "Ma'am, I paid for my seat, just like everyone else." She scoffed, crossed her arms, and hissed loud enough for half the cabin to hear, "You probably used points or something. I've been flying for 20 years. They should keep coach passengers in coach." I didn't say a word. I just watched her toss her designer bag onto the seat beside her and glare at the flight attendant as if she owned the plane. The poor attendant tried to ease the tension, but Karen, yeah, that's what people like her always turn out to be, kept pushing. When the attendant asked her to lower her voice, she snapped, "Maybe focus on him. He's in the wrong seat. Check his ticket." The attendant blinked, nervous, but did as told. I slowly handed over my ticket. The attendant's eyes flicked between me and the paper for a second, then her posture changed completely. "Sir, you're all good. My apologies for the disturbance." Karen frowned. "What? You're just gonna let him sit there? This is ridiculous." I leaned back, looked her calmly, and said, "Sometimes people are exactly where they're supposed to be." That only made her angrier. She muttered things under her breath the whole time boarding continued. But I stayed quiet. I wasn't there to argue. I was there for something else entirely. When the plane finally started taxiing, I felt the weight of my badge hidden beneath my jacket. The captain's voice came over the intercom, and I did my routine scan of the passengers. Everything seemed normal until the man sitting 2 rows behind Karen slipped his hand under his jacket, just for a second too long. Karen kept talking, complaining, unaware that her drama was about to become the least important thing on this flight. Because while my eyes locked on that man 2 rows behind her, his movements were too careful, like someone trying not to be seen. He had a dark backpack at his feet, one hand resting on it, and every few seconds he glanced toward the aisle. I'd seen that kind of body language before. Too calm, too aware. Karen was still ranting, completely oblivious. "This is why airlines need stricter rules. People like him ruin the experience for paying customers." I didn't even look her way. My right hand slid under my jacket, brushing against the metal clip that held my ID. I kept my voice low as I spoke into the tiny mic pinned inside my collar. "Seat 4A, possible threat. Gray jacket, dark bag, frequent glances. I'm watching." "Copy that," came the faint response from the flight deck. The cabin lights dimmed as the plane lifted off. A couple of passengers ordered drinks. The usual chatter filled the air, but my focus stayed locked. The man's fingers twitched over the zipper of his bag again. Something wasn't right. Then, out of nowhere, Karen leaned closer to me. "You know, if you had any class, you'd switch seats so I could have the window. Some of us deserve the view." I turned to her slowly. "Ma'am," I said, voice calm but firm, "for your own safety, please remain seated and don't draw attention." She blinked. "Excuse me? Are you threatening me now?" "No, ma'am. I'm protecting you." Her face twisted in confusion just as I stood up, pretending to stretch. My eyes flicked toward the man's seat. He was sweating now. His leg bounced nervously. He glanced toward the lavatory, then down at his bag again. I started moving down the aisle casually, like I was just heading to the restroom. Karen muttered something nasty as I passed, but I didn't care. My mind was already in protocol mode. When I reached his row, he froze. Our eyes met. For a second, it was dead quiet, just the hum of the engines and the faint rattle of trays. Then he grabbed the bag. I moved faster. "Sir, put the bag down!" My voice wasn't loud, but the authority in it made a few heads turn. He hesitated, then bolted up from his seat. Karen screamed. The bag fell to the floor, and before anyone else could react, I had him pinned against the aisle wall, one hand on his wrist,
The whole cabin went silent. The man struggled for a second, trying to twist free, but I pressed his arm tighter against the wall. "Don't move," I warned. My voice was calm, but cold, the kind that makes people listen. Karen was clutching her pearls, eyes wide, still not understanding what was happening. "Flight attendants, do something! He's hurting that man!" she yelled, pointing right at me. The attendant looked frozen, unsure who to believe. The passengers started whispering. One even pulled out a phone to record. Typical. I quickly flashed the corner of my badge just enough for the attendant to see. Her eyes went huge, and she immediately nodded. "Everyone, please stay seated," she said firmly, her voice shaking just a bit. Karen blinked. "Wait, what's that? What's happening? Is this some kind of prank?" Ignoring her, I kicked the bag away from the man's reach. "What's in the bag?" I demanded. He didn't answer, just glared at me with that blank, cold stare that tells you he's made bad decisions before. I said, "What's in the bag?" He muttered something under his breath, something that sounded foreign, and that was enough for me. I yanked his arm back and cuffed him in one smooth move. The sound of metal locking made everyone on the plane jump. The first officer's voice came through my earpiece. "Marshal, situation under control." "Affirmative," I replied, still holding the man down. "Suspect restrained, bag secure. We'll need a sweep when we land." Karen was shaking now, face pale. You're in air, Marshal?" she whispered, disbelief in her tone. I turned my head slightly toward her, keeping my grip on the suspect. "Yes, ma'am. The same kind of person you said shouldn't sit in first class." Her mouth fell open. She didn't say another word. The passengers started clapping, quietly at first, then louder. Even the guy across the aisle who'd been pretending to sleep looked impressed. When I finally stood up, handing the bag off to the attendant, I could feel everyone's eyes on me. Karen sank into her seat, staring at the floor. The confidence, the arrogance, gone completely. I sat. My heartbeat hadn't settled yet when I noticed the man's eyes darting, not in panic, but towards someone else. My gut tightened. I followed his gaze and saw a woman near the back of the cabin pretending to sleep, but her hand was inside her coat pocket, gripping something. I stood up again. "Stay seated," I ordered the suspect, then moved down the aisle, my steps steady but fast. The passengers were whispering, phones half raised, but no one dared interfere. Karen just sat frozen, clutching her drink like it might protect her. As I approached the woman, she suddenly sat up, startled. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her tone way too calm. I saw it then, a small device half hidden in her palm, blinking faintly. I didn't think, I just acted. I grabbed her wrist, twisting it enough to make her drop the device. It hit the floor and slid under a seat. Passengers gasped. "Ma'am, keep your hands where I can see them," I said sharply. The flight attendant rushed over, pale. "Sir, what is that?" I crouched down, picked it up carefully. It was a signal jammer. Harmless to most, but on a plane, it could have disrupted communications. I turned to the woman, whose calm mask had started to crack. "You were supposed to trigger a distraction for him, weren't you?" Her eyes went wide. She didn't answer. That was all the confirmation I needed. Within minutes, both suspects were restrained, and the captain diverted the flight to Denver for an emergency landing. When we touched down, airport security and federal agents were already waiting. They took the two off the plane while I gave my statement. As I sat back in my seat, the weight of what almost happened finally hit me. A coordinated attack disguised under petty chaos. Karen's loud complaints had almost made me miss it. Almost. The passengers clapped again when I stood up to leave, but this time it wasn't applause for drama, it was gratitude. The flight attendant whispered, "You saved everyone on board." I just nodded. It's what I'm here for. Karen finally spoke up as I walked past her. Her voice was shaky but sincere. "I'm sorry for what I said earlier. I was wrong." I paused, looked her in the eyes, and gave her a small, calm smile. "Ma'am, next time you judge someone, Make sure you know who you're talking to." Then I walked off the plane, sunlight hitting my badge as I stepped onto the jet bridge. Behind me, Karen sat quietly, realizing that the man she'd insulted, the man she'd mocked, had just saved her life. And as the doors closed, one thought stayed in my mind. Sometimes the loudest people on the plane are the ones who have no idea who's really keeping them safe.